Investing into the unknown. Hello everyone, today we will be talking about investing into South Africa. So these are the main topics that we will talk about. So the steps of doing business, setting up a business, the business culture, business etiquette, the negotiation style, and a final conclusion.
Next up, we actually have the country profile. As you can see, first of all, we have the flag. The flag of South Africa expresses major elements of the country's flag history. The Y shape can be understood as a merging of diverse elements within South African history, taking the road to unity. Next up, we have the currency, which is actually called the rand, and it was introduced in the year 1961 when the country became a republic. From 1961 until 1982, the rand had actually a higher value than the dollar, but after that, the currency started to decrease due to the policy of apartheid and the international pressure. Then the last, we have the president. His name was actually Cyril Ramaphosa. He's the leader of the state and government of the Republic of South Africa since 2019.
We can say that South Africa is a rainbow nation or a multicultural country because there are black, white, colored, Asian communities that are living in South Africa who have different cultures, values, and behaviors. But they are living and working together as one unified people, like the colors of the rainbow. So South Africa has been through a lot of historical developments like colonization periods of the Dutch, the British, and others. Also, the apartheid period played a role that South Africa is now called the Rainbow Nation. Today, the country still has some challenges as the society remains in many ways divided. And a tip from the embassy was always expect the unexpected when doing business in South Africa.
The demography of South Africa. So as you can see on the graph, it has been growing for the past 10 years, which is a good thing because this means that in the future there will be a bigger workforce available. So great opportunities for companies to invest or start up their own business in Africa, in South Africa. Then the unemployment. On the graph you can see that it is a really high rate of unemployment. And this is not a good thing, but now this means that there are a lot of people who don't have a job, and this means that there are a lot of people available to start a new job. So, as I said earlier, great opportunities for new companies and entrepreneurs to start their business in South Africa. Then the corruption index. As you can see, there is a lot of red in Africa, but South Africa is doing pretty well in comparison with other neighboring countries. It has a 44 out of 100. It is not that good, but still better than the other countries. But this is a thing where the government and South Africa itself is really trying to work on, so that is a good thing.
Starting a business in South Africa is fairly easy. One of the first steps is obtaining the business visa, and that is done at either the South African embassy or the consulate. One of the biggest hurdles that you have to get through with the business visa is the paperwork. There's a lot of it, so it can take up to 6 months and up to a year to obtain the visa.
Starting a business in South Africa is also relatively cheap. It will cost you between 125 rands to 475 rands. That equals to 8 to 28 euros. In comparison with Belgium, where you have to pay at least between 120 and 150 to register a business, it looks cheap. And the corporate income tax in South Africa is at the moment around 25%. For the location, we have 3 different cities. Here you can see the map of South Africa with 3 different cities located elsewhere. Cape Town is located in the south of South Africa, and it is a big city with big port that drives their economy. And then we have Durban. It's also a big city with a big port. They also have a lot of tourists visiting. And Johannesburg is a big city with a lot of international businesses operating from there. So these are the main locations that we would suggest you to look at while doing business in South Africa.
There are many different sectors in South Africa that are open for investment. The mining industry is one of the most popular ones that consists of mostly diamonds and machinery. The transportation component industry consists of components for either cars, trains, or aviation. The wine industry is something that is well known, but not as popular within the world. But it can potentially compare to Italy or France. The food-related component or food-related products is also very popular in South Africa. That is something like citrus fruit, and that is popular because of the inverted seasons. And then the clothing and footwear industry is something that's relatively new, but has a lot of potential for investment.
And here we had a video that we would be showing in the class, but unfortunately we're not presenting in class anymore due to Corona. We will put the link in the description and you can have a look at it.
All right, next up we have Hofstede dimensions. As you can see the graph above, there are three main differences between South Africa and Belgium. You find a difference in power distance, uncertainty avoidance, and long-term orientation. I will only talk about long-term orientation since this is the biggest difference within all the dimensions. Belgium actually has a very high score, which means they like to think about the future. For example, savings, modern education systems, and they also do not care so much about traditions. While in South Africa, they really care about traditions, and only a small portion of the South Africans actually save for the future.
When you want to do business in South Africa, you should consider some business etiquette, like arrive on time, especially when your partner is white or Asian South African. It's also significant to build relationship with your business partner. For them, it's necessary to have mutual understanding and respect. Also, trust can be experienced as an issue in South Africa. As a business partner, you must be very open and honest about your company and the deal. And it's also important to come prepared to business meetings. Also, be transparent about the contracts that you're making and have a formal dress code when you have a meeting.
All right, next up you have negotiations. The negotiations approaches depend on your counterpart's culture's background. South Afrikaners can be quite competitive and may be unwilling to agree with compromises unless it is their only option to keep the negotiation from getting stuck. In contrast, Black and British South Africans may view negotiations as a joint problem-solving process, and then they also focus more on the long-term benefits.
Decision making takes time in South Africa, and South African people think that the ideal outcome of a meeting is when both parties have a win-win result. So thereby, high pressure tactics are unsuccessful. Also, the workplaces are hierarchical. It's expensive in South Africa that the higher position makes the final decisions. So you have to have an understanding about the lines of authority. Also, a tip from the embassy was that decision making, you have to be strongly advisable to avoid open confrontation and remain respectful and cooperative.
So for conclusion, we came up with, after the research that we did for South Africa, is that it is safe and sound to invest in South Africa. The best industries to invest in would be wine industry and the clothing and footwear industry, as these are relatively low barrier entries. For example, if you want to invest in the mining industry, it would be really expensive and hard to get inside. Here we have some weaknesses and strengths of South Africa. Weaknesses would be paperwork. It takes a lot of time. Corruption is kind of bad. You could compare it to East European countries like Romania and Hungary. South Africa also has a high Gini coefficient. That means that there is a big gap between the rich and the poor. The better things about South Africa are the ease of doing business. They have a really big economy. It's one of the biggest in Africa. They have a growing population, which means that there will be a lot of manpower. Also, the education system means the people will be able to work with computers and all this stuff. So it is good and safe to invest in South Africa. And we would like to thank you for listening to our presentation and yeah, invest in South Africa. Good luck. Thank you. Bye.